We're going into nut country. Let's play hardball. Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews in Washington. Let me start tonight with this. Paranoid America is climbing out of its bunker. The near possibility that the Obama administration might stop the easy sale of the scariest guns to the scariest people has aroused the slippery slope crowd. These cousins of the grassy knoll folks believe that any limit on the wide-open market for guns and ammo threatens their own hardware. Any reasonable action by the American people to stop the carnage is, to these paranoids, the first unfaltering step toward mass confiscation of everything from shotguns to daisy rifles. Well, tonight, we let you hear from the craziest of the crazies. My question, are the regular gun owners of this country, the people who go out and hunt in hunting season, the people who shoot skeet or simply like to pack their own bullets, regular gun enthusiasts, are they going to listen to these nutcases or to Joe Biden when he offers proposals next week on background checks and high-capacity magazines? Who are the people that are going to decide this issue, I mean the gun owners, going to go with? The Wild Bunch or the town posse? David Corn is Washington Bureau Chief for Mother Jones, and Joy Reid is Managing Editor of The Griot. Both are MSNBC political analysts. Joy, your bet. Who do the regular gun owners, the reasonable guys, Pennsylvania-type guys in many cases, who go out and shoot when they're supposed to shoot, practice shooting and get good at it with a couple shots, that's all you get with a deer, are they going to go with the nuts?
You know what, Chris? I mean, I grew up in Colorado. I grew up around people who were military, people who were ex-military, people who hunted. You know, Colorado's a big hunting state. And I don't think anyone that I've ever met that is a responsible gun owner can side with these, you know, for lack of a better word, these Looney Tunes who are out here because they're doing something different. They're stockpiling. They're getting assault rifles. These are not normal gun owners. What you're hearing from now is the absolute fringe. And unfortunately, they're being allowed to speak for the pro-Second Amendment crowd.
David, we're going to show the worst of the worst in a minute, but first, your thoughts. Will they go with the regular gun owners, the people that are in the NRA in Pennsylvania, and they vote Democrat or Republican? Are they going to go with the crazies like James Yeager? We're going to show him and Alex Jones again.
You know what's crucial to this is what Clinton did back in '94. Remember, he got an assault weapons ban through Congress over the NRA opposition and the opposition of many Republicans and some Democrats. And the way he got it was by bringing the cops, the police,
I know, but
the public safety.
How many seats did he lose over that?
Well, they lost a lot of seats, so you got to keep the fight going after you win. So the way to get people to side with responsible gun control, gun violence prevention, is to make this a wide coalition to show them that, hey, you're with people who like to shoot, you're with people who care, like cops. It's not just liberal Dems.
I agree.
So that's the key here as we go forward.
Okay, well, the Raw Story website got a hold of this threatening video from this fella I mentioned, James Yeager. He's CEO of a group called Tactical Response, and he's pledging actual violence as a result of the White House action on gun safety. Take a listen.
I'm telling you that if that happens, it's going to spark a civil war, and I'll be glad to fire the first shot. I'm not putting up with it. You shouldn't put up with it. And I need all you patriots to start thinking about what you're going to do. Load your damn mags, make sure your rifle's clean, pack a backpack with some food in it, and get ready to fight. I'm not putting up with this. I am not letting my country be ruled by a dictator. I'm not letting anybody take my guns. If it goes 1 inch further, I'm going to start killing people.
Well, you got that. And the paranoid on the fringe right, it all comes down to being anti-tyranny. Here was Alex Jones talking to Piers Morgan earlier this week.
So we did it to point out that this is globalism, and the mega banks that control the planet and brag that they've taken over, in Bloomberg, AP, Reuters, you name it, brag that they're going to get our guns as well. They've taken everybody's guns but the Swiss and the American people. And when they get our guns, they can have their world tyranny. While the government buys 1.6 billion bullets, armored vehicles, tanks, helicopters, Predator drones, armed, now in U.S. skies, being used to arrest people in North Dakota. The Second Amendment isn't there for duck hunting. It's there to protect us from tyrannical government and street thugs.
So what do you make of that, Joy?
I mean, this is crazy, Chris. I watched that video last night, the Yeager video, the first one, and I watched the Alex Jones interview this past week. These are not normal pro-Second Amendment people. This is insanity. These are people who are essentially arming themselves and stockpiling arms, saying they have more than 50 arms in their house against some sort of tyrannical government invasion of their personal homes. This is basically the paranoiacs in American society being brought forward and made to speak for ordinary gun owners. It's up to gun owners themselves to distance themselves from this craziness.
Well, let's keep listening to this. I want to look. Here's one from the. I want to get all these in here tonight. Ted Nugent to WorldNet Daily. Let's take a look at this one. Here's what he said. There will come a time when the gun owners of America, the law-abiding gun owners of America, will be the Rosa Parks, and we will sit down in the front of the bus. Case closed. And this morning on CNN, the chairman or chair of the Gun Appreciation Day suggested slavery wouldn't have occurred if guns had been available to everyone in America at the time. Let's listen to this malarkey.
I think Martin Luther King would agree with me, if he were alive today, that if African Americans had been given the right to keep and bear arms from day one of the country's founding, perhaps slavery might not have been a chapter in our history.
What a dumb nut. Joy, you got to start on this. This is not only a nut, but a dumb nut. Slaves didn't come to America as citizens. They came in shackles in the bottom of a ship somewhere. If they're lucky to be alive, they got here. The idea that they would be armed by anyone, well, you take it on. I mean, he's obviously paternalizing here, or patronizing, or trying to act like he cares about the fate of black people as some sort of number he's playing here. Who would believe this malarkey?
Yeah, and Chris, why is it that every time the far right decides to make an argument that is insane, they jump on the civil rights movement or slavery and try to latch their argument onto the history of African Americans?
Give a damn. As if they would have been up at the front for the fight.
You don't remember Ted Nugent standing in front of everyone in the civil rights marches?
No, I remember him refusing to go to Vietnam. I remember him getting out of going to Vietnam and being afraid to carry a gun when his country asked him to carry a gun in Vietnam. He was a coward. And these guys always jump on slavery and the civil rights movement. You know what? It's offensive. Yeah, if slaves hadn't been owned by other people, there wouldn't have been slavery either.
This is what's happening now is something we've been talking about for 5 years, and that is the extreme right, let's call it what it is, has gone on about Barack Obama as a socialist, as conspiracy theories about secret plans to take guns and dominate the country. And now, because Biden comes out and talks about high-capacity magazines, they say, finally, they have something to nail on, and they're just running out of the way.
I don't want to make fun of these people because about what percent of the country is 5 or 10%?
But they're dangerous because they're armed. I mean, these are real
that is a problem. Remember where I got that phrase from? We're going into nut country. That's what Jack Kennedy said the day he died. To Jackie. Anyway, yesterday, Rush Limbaugh said the president cannot be stopped when it comes to getting what he wants. You don't think this is going to the mainstream of the right? Here's Rush. Let's listen.
You know, Obama will try anything and has, and nobody stops him, by the way. He has trumped the Constitution's First Amendment and religious liberty. He has trumped the Constitution on immigration. He essentially granted amnesty to 1 million kids without benefit of legislation. He'll do anything that nobody tries to stop him from doing. Of course, an executive order legally doesn't trump the Constitution. But if he issues an executive order to try to confiscate guns or something along those lines, and nobody stops him, does he not get away with it?
Well, here's the point. Rush has a brain. He's a smart guy. He's a marketer. He knows what he's doing. He's in many ways, he's a showman. But how can he honestly believe that a president could issue an executive order confiscating guns?
You know, to be extreme in reaction to this extremism, I can hear less smart people. I can imagine them listening to this and thinking there is only one way to stop this guy. You know, it's like it's calling for John Wilkes Booth. He's a tyrant. He's going to take over. And this is just feeding the worst paranoia. And there are mentally deranged people out there who will listen to this stuff, and they're going to say, hey, I know how to stop
this. It does have the incendiary quality of some of that stuff in Hollywood, Rwanda, what is it called, Hotel Rwanda, when you have people actually out there instigating almost armed warfare.
Yeah,
Your thoughts, I mean, it has a piece of that.
I think that also on a less volatile scale, I think the other thing it does, I mean, I remember talking to Republican voters during this last presidential campaign, and they had an actual genuine fear that there was going to be gun confiscation because they listen to somebody like Rush, and they think they're listening to the news. So they think that this is real. And so you have a lot of Republican politicians who might otherwise be swayed by the sane people. They're worried constantly about their right flank, about someone running against them and saying that they were soft on gun confiscation. So that's why I am so dubious, unfortunately, and cynical as to whether you can get actual legislation, because the politicians think the fringe rules their base and they're worried about their jobs.
You've just done something very frightening, Joy. You have just tied together paranoia with gullibility. In other words, they believe Rush and they're afraid of everything else.
And these weren't crazy people. These were people who sounded perfectly normal and rational, but they think Rush is the news.
And they're being exploited by Rush and the NRA, who are playing on their fears.
And selling guns. Anyways, the White House reviews potential gun control policies. Lawmakers in Wyoming are already at the ready to not follow new policies and arrest any government official who tries to enforce them. So we're talking nullification here. I think Jeff Davis would be proud. Anyway, this one seems like it's yanked right for the days when people debated nullification, back in the 1880s. The bill reads in part, any official, agent, or employee of the United States government who enforces or attempts to enforce any act, order, law, statute, rule, or regulation of the United States government upon a personal firearm, a firearm accessory, or ammunition shall be guilty of a felony. The bill calls for punishment of up to 5 years in prison or a hefty fine for anyone who enforces federal gun laws that don't even yet exist. Joy, you're talking nullification here, all the elements of the bad old days before the Civil War, the idea that somebody in a state can absolutely just arrest government, let's just Fort Sumter. I mean, it's really something here. And you know what? We're not making this up, ladies and gentlemen. And we're not fishing for it. These people are out there shouting from the rooftops about this nonsense.
They're out there. And what's sad is that, the NRA used to actually support gun control. And the irony is, and we covered this on the Griot today, that back in the 60s, in the late 60s, when the Black Panthers were the ones saying that there was an individual right to bear arms because they wanted to do armed patrols watching police officers in Los Angeles, it was people like Governor Ronald Reagan who pushed for gun control, who signed the Mumford Act, which essentially made it illegal to carry guns in public, illegal to carry guns in a car. The NRA was all for that because at that time it was couched in the idea of stopping what they thought was a frightening Black Panther movement or a Black civil rights movement. They've completely changed their minds about this issue.
And another way, and certainly in a more beneficial way, back when we identified machine guns or automatic weapons with Machine Gun Kelly and Babyface Nelson and those guys in Chicago, the country was quick to outlaw automatic weapons.
And, a couple of years ago, Barack Obama got into trouble when he said some Americans cling to their guns. What we're seeing now is that he was right. Maybe he didn't say it the right way, but we are. There is, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20%, they cling to their guns, they buy the fear-mongering, and the NRA, Rush Limbaugh, and more importantly, the gun manufacturers are all preying on these people and trying to get them all whipped up. And so you see the stuff in Wyoming.
The safest bet in American life, more safe than I have to tell you than savings bonds or T-bonds. The safest bet is that we will have as many guns or more 20 or 30 years from now as we have now. That is the safest, surest bet in American life, and it's sad. And anybody who bets against that is wasting our time, and just go see a doctor.
This is a moment where there's a chance. There is a greater chance now than there has been in the last 10 years, maybe in the next 10 years.
The magazine capacities will be limited.
Maybe.
Well, yes.
But, Chris, even increasing the social opprobrium against sort of mass gun ownership, that just drives these people further to the fringe. It drives them underground. It drives the sales online and off the books. And I think I am actually genuinely frightened by this sort of rage and sort of almost paranoid sort of incitement that you're seeing on the right. And it's being done by people like Rush who know better.
Yeah, I know. And I think we might have trouble, really bad trouble someday in the near future by this. Anyway, we can tell you that the NBC station in Nashville is now reporting that the state of Tennessee has suspended the handgun carry permit of James Yeager. That was the first guy we quoted tonight. A real nut. Anyway, David Korn. Joy Reid, thank you for joining us. Have a nice weekend. Coming up, reality check. Gun control advocates say this is the moment to pass new legislation. Well, the pro-gun crowd says there's no way they'll accept an assault weapons ban. Who's going to win this fight? Also, exit strategy. President Obama made it clear today the United States is accelerating its withdrawal from Afghanistan and plans to leave very few troops there after next year. This much is clear. Gone is the goal of nation building. And U.S. Congressman Phil Gingrey apparently felt that two so-called rape candidates in the Republican Party, Richard Murdoch and Tom Akin, wasn't enough. He's just come out defending Akin's legitimate rape comments. Once again, Republicans, just keep it up. And finally, the city that's the star of Oscar-nominated films this year isn't New York or L.A. or Rome or Paris. It's D.C., right here in Washington, Lincoln, Argo, Zero Dark 30, the nation's capital, ready for its close-up. And this is Hardball, a place for politics.